All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're taking a close look at Fluence Energy's latest quarterly results. Why? Because what's happening inside this company gives us a serious preview of the future of energy storage and really the entire green energy transition. So let's get into it.
Here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll tackle the big picture problem Fluence is trying to solve. Then, we'll grade their latest quarterly performance, the hits and the misses. After that, we'll see how they're dealing with U.S. policy, check out the showdown between batteries and natural gas, and then look at a huge new opportunity, powering the AI boom. And finally, we'll see what the road ahead looks like for them.
Okay, first things first, let's set the stage. Our whole world is going electric. You see it everywhere. Cars, homes, you name it. But here's the catch. Our electrical grids, the very backbone of all this, were designed for a totally different time. And that creates a massive, massive challenge.
And that really is the million-dollar question for the renewable energy age, isn't it? Solar and wind are amazing, but they're not always on. They're intermittent. So what do? How do you possibly keep the grid stable and deliver reliable power 24/7? Well, the answer is these things. Battery energy storage systems, or BESS for short. The easiest way to think about them is as giant power banks, but for the entire electrical grid. They're like a critical shock absorber, soaking up all that extra juice when the sun is beaming, and then bam, releasing it the second it's needed. This is the tech at the absolute heart of Fluence's business. So now that we know what they do, how did Fluence actually do this past quarter? It's time to pull out the report card. The top-line numbers paint a really interesting, kind of mixed picture. Revenue was $603 million. But, the real story is in the other numbers. Look at that adjusted gross margin, over 15%. That's a super healthy number in this industry. And get this, their order backlog is a whopping $4.9 billion. That shows you just how much business is already lined up for the future. So here's the fascinating contrast. On one hand, you have these incredible wins. They signed over $1 billion in new contracts just after the quarter ended, and that includes the single biggest deal in the company's history. Profitability looks great, cash position is strong, but on the other hand, there's that revenue number, which missed expectations by about $100 million.
So you gotta ask, right? If demand is so high and they're signing record deals, what's the story behind that $100 million mess?
Well, according to the company, it's pretty much a classic case of growing pains. They're moving a lot of production to the U.S., and they've hit a few speed bumps, especially at their new factory in Arizona. They called it typical ramp-up issues, as they get the new facility humming like their established one in Vietnam. But, and this is the key part, they say this revenue isn't gone forever. It's just delayed. They fully expect to book it in 2026. Now, those production delays in the U.S. tie perfectly into our next topic, the American policy landscape. This has been a huge area of focus lately, and there have been some really big moves. There is this major new piece of legislation, which Fluence's CEO playfully nicknamed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and it is a massive tailwind for domestic battery storage. I mean, it's almost like it was written just for a company like Fluence. It extends tax credits, but it also puts limits on equipment from China and pushes for more American-made content. It's all designed to help companies building out a U.S. supply chain. And a key piece of this new policy world is this term Foreign Entity of Concern, or FEOC. You're going to hear this a lot. It's basically a tool the government uses to limit companies from certain countries, especially China, from being part of critical U.S. supply chains. And as you can imagine, Fluence is working hard to make sure their whole supply chain is compliant with these new rules. Okay, so what about tariffs? For a while, things were super uncertain, and it actually caused a lot of projects in the U.S. to just stop. But recently, some of those crazy high tariffs on battery parts got slashed way down. That brought some much-needed predictability back to the market, and Fluence said that all of their projects that were on hold are now back up and running. This all leads us to a really exciting showdown that's happening right now in the energy world. It's the new kid on the block, battery storage, going head-to-head with old-school, gas-fired power plants. And according to Fluence's CEO, the evidence is becoming just undeniable. When you need to meet that peak power demand, battery storage is now winning against gas turbines on almost every level. It's not just that the cost is getting better and better, it's also about speed. You can get a battery project up and running way faster than you could ever permit and build a new gas plant. And hey, this isn't just some theory on a slide. It is happening in the real world. Check this out. This is a truly landmark moment. Just this past June, in California, one of the biggest economies on the planet, batteries supplied more than a quarter of the state's evening peak electricity. And in doing so, they beat natural gas for the very first time. This proves it. Grid-scale storage isn't coming, it's here.
All right, let's pivot. We've talked about the grid of today. Now let's talk about the grid of tomorrow, which is going to have to power one of the biggest revolutions of our lifetime, artificial intelligence. Think about it. Data centers, especially the ones training these new AI models, are incredibly power hungry, and their demand for energy is super spiky. That puts a huge strain on the grid. And the market opportunity for using battery storage to fix this problem? It's estimated to be a staggering $8.5 billion by 2030. And batteries are just perfectly designed for this job, acting like a buffer to handle those power surges and keep everything stable. And as their CEO said, Fluence is already in there, working directly with the big data center companies to build custom solutions for this brand new exploding market. So, when you put it all together, the strong profits, the helpful policies, these huge new markets, what does the future actually look like for Fluence? Well, let's take a look at their pipeline. The numbers here are just, wow, eye-popping. They already have a backlog of nearly $5 billion in secured projects. But beyond that, their total pipeline of potential projects has ballooned to over $23 billion. That gives them incredible visibility into where future growth is coming from. And after that revenue timing issue this quarter, the company is making a pretty big promise to investors to build confidence. From now on, when they give financial guidance, they're going to base it on having 80 to 90% of that revenue already locked in their backlog. That's a huge jump from the 65% they used before. The whole point is to make their forecasts much more reliable. So this all brings us to one final big picture thought. We're watching two gigantic transformations happen at the exact same time, the energy transition and the AI revolution. And the one thing that connects them both is this massive need for flexible, intelligent power. It leaves you with this really fascinating question. Can one company actually build the foundation for both of these world-changing shifts at the same time?